Antivirus and Endpoint Security 101. We have our amazing speakers here, JV and Robert. So I'm going to hand it off to JV to do a quick introduction, and then Robert.
Thank you, Devon. So my name is JV Varma. I lead the product management for the security suite here at Kaseya and Datto. So I'm excited to be here and talking to you all along with Robert. So Robert, why don't you do a quick intro and we can get started.
Hey, Rob Smithers. I'm CEO of Miercom Testing Labs here on the East Coast, and honored to be here with everybody. I look forward to sharing our recent test results on Datto EDR.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. So, all right. So here's our agenda for the day. We'll keep it pretty simple. We'll take a quick look at the current threat landscape, some basics of endpoint security. We'll touch upon AV and endpoint EDR, endpoint detection and response solutions. Layered security, I'm sure that this is not a new concept, but we want to kind of bring a new, we wanted to look at it from a different perspective when we think about endpoint security, and then some practical tips. And then finally, Robert is going to cover through some of the testing that Miercom has done around Datto EDR and Datto AV and some of the results from the efficacy testing. So, I think I don't think we need an introduction around what's happening with respect to cyber attacks, right? I mean, every day you open up your newspaper, you're going to see a news about cyber attacks, and it's actually honestly pretty scary and crazy, right? If you look at the general theme that we have been seeing over the last year or so, I think it can be kind of categorized to three sections. One is ransomware. Ransomware as a service is a trend that is rising significantly. So basically, cyber criminals are offering ransomware kits on the dark web, making it easier for the very less technically skilled attackers to launch attacks. So that's one. The second thing is supply chain attacks. It's very prevalent, right? There have been news of so many different supply chain breaches over the last year, and they continue to have repercussions over to this year as well. And it's a trend that I don't think it has really slowed down. It's still a real deal. And then finally, targeted phishing campaigns. Again, phishing is probably one of the biggest reasons why people get attacked. It may start with phishing, but eventually the keys to the kingdom is essentially getting domain administrator access or getting onto your endpoints, right? So we see a significant increase in the sophisticated phishing campaigns targeting individuals, businesses. They make use of the current events, right? Like when COVID pandemic was there, there was a lot of phishing attacks using those kind of messages. Recently, we had an incident with another cybersecurity vendor, and then suddenly we are seeing phishing campaigns offering remediation, using certain, just run this executable and you will be all fine, things like that. So whenever there is a new event that happens in the world, it could be a pandemic, it could be a political change, it could be an event, an IT event like that happened just a couple of weeks ago that brought on a few systems, millions of systems across the world. There is going to be a phishing exercise. So these attackers are simply looking for certain events to kind of get started, right? I mean, and it's a money-making engine. There is a big financial motive and financial aim behind many of these cyber attacks. So and when you look at the financial incentives, right? I mean, why are folks doing this? It's a big business, it's a huge business. Cyber crime alone is about $8 trillion worth of damages, and everything combined, damages and business combined contributes to about 8 trillion. And it's very close to some of the largest GDPs of some of the largest countries, right? So it's kind of interesting statistics because the financial motive is what is driving most of these, right? I mean, so and there is no stopping, right? I mean, even before the IT age started, right? I mean, there used to be people try to defraud people. The same concepts like phishing attacks or cyber attacks existed. It's just continuing, but just using the new methods, right? So I thought it was a very interesting statistics around cybercrime here. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the details of the threat landscape. So the first one is on the what we see out there is that about 75% of the cyber attack victims, they are running traditional AV solutions. So it's not that they aren't investing in technologies, but they are running traditional AV solutions, right? And we also know that average cost of ransomware attack is about $8,000 an hour. So it may not be necessarily the money that they lost, right? But it is, when you think about the cost of a cyber attack, what does it really mean, right? It is obviously, if you lose your files and data, you may lose your credibility, you may lose money that is required to bring all the systems back online. I was reading the news this morning, actually, Delta said that in the recent Delta Airlines, they said that in the recent IT event, it was not a security event, but an IT event, they lost about $500 million in lost business in terms of the money and the effort that it requires IT personnel to get the systems back up and running. So there is associated cost when there is a cyber attack happens, right? I mean, and we are essentially including some of these costs when we say that, okay, cyber attack costs $8 trillion, as close to a GDP of a country, or in this case, a ransomware attack can bring down systems, hospital system or your dental office or, or your flower shop, right? I mean, whatever it may be, it's very expensive. And then finally, when you think about a small business, right? I mean, it's very difficult to get back on feet after an event like this happens. Your customers may not trust you anymore. You may have, you may have difficulty restoring data, right? I mean, your files are encrypted, and unless you pay a huge amount of ransom, or even if it's a small amount of ransom, but you're going to find it very difficult to keep afloat, right? So there are repercussions when an IT event or a security event happen. So what do we do about all these things, right? We know that this is a real problem, and when we think about security, I always try to speak in this framework that you see on the screen. This is comparable to the NIST framework, if you are familiar with NIST. But if you are not, don't worry about it. So fundamentally, what we are saying here is that when you think about cybersecurity, think about it from the perspective of 5 pillars and governance, right? Pillar 1 is identify. You cannot really protect what you cannot identify. If you do not know what systems are in your network, how do you actually protect all of them, right? I mean, so that's the basic concept of identify. So the next thing is, once you know what you have to protect, once you know what you need to protect, then protect it, right? I mean, use technologies like firewalls, antivirus solutions, and then comes detection, which is essentially means that protection may not be 100%. There is no such thing as 100% protection, because there is people can evade protection by numerous means. So you need to detect things which essentially misses the traditional protection layers, right? And then once you detect, how do you take a response action? This is where concepts like incident response engagements comes into the play, right? Where you have to take a response action based on an event that you have detected. And then finally, recovery, right? So you have protected, you try to detect things that evaded your protection systems. You know how to respond to some of these things that you have detected. But if everything else fails, you need a way to recover things from, say, a backup solution that you have in place. So when you think about AV, which is AV and EDR, which is essentially the topic of today's conversation, the antivirus or the traditional antivirus solutions falls into that protection category. It's your first line of defense, right? It stops multitude of threats. But the thing is, AV does not really catch advanced threats. And that's really when the EDR comes into the play. EDR is fundamentally a behavioral based system that can catch suspicious behaviors, right? And it can also do multiple layers of correlation, like you put one and one together, and then you kind of make an insight or a judgment based on what you have seen on the endpoint. So EDR, or endpoint detection and response solution, falls into that detect and respond category. So we already covered this. Most of the business need AV and EDR because, AV, traditional AV solutions or next-gen AV solutions, it primarily checks for malware or known stuff. The new types of solutions, and we'll talk about this in a minute here, new AV solutions or next-gen AV solutions actually is doing a lot more than just, looking for malware, like Datto AV. It does more than just looking for malware. It also performs heuristic analysis. So it does a lot more than just, based on a signature-based detection on the endpoint. But you also need solutions like EDR because, EDR is looking for stuff above and beyond what is known, right? So it looks for behaviors on the machine. It could be something like, somebody downloaded, an executable from the internet. Then the next step that they took is, they executed a PowerShell command based on the executable that they downloaded. And the next step that they're doing is they are trying to do privilege escalation, right? So we see a series of things or a series of activities on the endpoint that may actually indicate that a malicious actor is on the endpoint and they are trying to do some damage to the machine. So it is very important that a machine has both AV and EDR solutions in place to address the new threats. So when you look at the history of this technology evolution, right? It has essentially kept up in pace with how attackers are changing their habits. In the past, maybe 2 decades ago, an AV solution may have been enough, right? But eventually, then we found that just AV is not enough because there are new threats like polymorphic malware. The same malware, but it changes its how it behaves over time. So you need to have next-gen AV. So next-gen AV not just looks at the signature of a specific file, but it is having some heuristic analysis using machine learning or pattern recognition to identify a rogue activity or a rogue activity of a file. Now, fast forward in time, right? Maybe perhaps a little over about a decade ago, maybe 2013, 2014 timeframe. Actually, that's when Datto EDR was released into the field. So it's a technology that has been out there for about 10 years now. EDR came into the play. So EDR is really about figuring out or knowing all the activity that happens on an endpoint. So it brings more visibility, right? So it's not just about checking whether this file is good or bad, but really looking at all the activity, understanding all the telemetry that goes on the endpoint, and then determining whether there is this activity contributes to a potentially malicious stuff on the endpoint. And then finally, fast forward, right? We are realizing that EDR is doing a fantastic job of offering visibility and knowing whether something is good or bad. It can also do some response actions such as isolating a host, deleting a file, quarantining a folder or quarantining a file. So it can take a bunch of response actions, and it can be assisted using technologies or services like MDR or managed detection and response. So we are seeing this evolution from traditional AV to next-gen AV to EDR, and then now EDR plus MDR. So that's kind of this is where we are right now. So for a really good security to have in place, you probably need all these solutions in place. This is driven by how the industry has evolved. The attackers have evolved, the techniques have evolved, and we need new methodologies to kind of identify and respond to these things in the market. So with that said, let me bring in Rob Smithers. Robert, it's again fantastic to have you and have you talk through the Datto EDR and AV efficacy testing. I can't wait to hear for you to share with the rest of the audience here. How you went about testing the solution and what results you identified.
Thank you, JV, for that warm intro. And actually, I learned a thing or two there. So very, very informative overview. Thank you. So welcome again. A little bit about Miercom, like who's this guy? We've been doing product testing at Miercom for over 35 years. Before there was even other security labs, we were out there doing that, testing for the major publications, doing competitive bake-offs and analysis. And the whole purpose was to help differentiate products, to help vendors help customers make an informed purchasing decisions, to help MSPs and MSSPs select the best products for them, not one size fits all, but what's a good fit for them. For that reason, we've undergone testing for many years and we truly enjoy it. Next slide, please. And we see testing, it's an art, it's a passion for us. The being independent, your integrity is everything. You never know everything about everything. You are always learning. We learn from the vendors, we learn from our customers and so forth. So it's a continual learning process, but we want to put products through the most aggressive, the worst case scenarios and so forth. So the customers and the vendors and the MSSPs don't have to deal with the problems. We want to incur the issues in the lab while we test it. And bottom line, we want to make the world a better place. We want to help vendors improve their products. We want to help secure, businesses, make them better. And we want the MSPs to have the best possible products on the market that they're representing. So we undertake these industry assessments. So a lot of you might have seen like the Gartner and Forrester reports and other analyst reports. Well, we kind of do that, but we lay hands on the products. We lay hands on the products. We test them and we evaluate them. We beat them up. We go back and forth. Even with our friends at Datto here, we went back and forth quite a few times on several issues to make sure we were accurate in what we were finding. But we don't roll over. We call it like we see it. We have no vested interest in any vendor that was in this EDR industry assessment. We calculate industry averages by all the vendors in the space. We try to get at least 75%. We get the market leaders. In this case, the EDR industry averages that we're going to present in our results. We had the top 6 vendors evaluated when we were calculating, like let's say malware efficacy, for example, or time to detect, things like that. We need a frame of reference. That's why we test them all, come up with an average, and that way we can advise MSSPs, enterprises, and the vendors themselves, hey, how are we? How are we on the average compared to the other guys? We think it's a fair way to represent the industry. If anyone has a suggestion how to do it otherwise, feel free. We're hiring. Let us know. Next slide, please. So this is the very, very simplistic diagram for the testing that we used for, go back one. Oh, it might have a little timing element in it, and that's okay. So we use Windows 10 and 11 real devices, real endpoint devices for this testing. And we used a combination of malware and advanced threats as we were applying the malware. A lot of the testing was done with Wi-Fi. We did have other connectivity issues to the network. Yeah, sorry about the fluctuation. We can keep it on this slide. It's okay. So oh my, we do have some kind of a timing thing going on. Sorry about that, guys.
I'll keep it at this slide, Robert.
Yeah, I could try to talk faster. Yeah, I think there's a timing element on the.
If we want, you can answer some questions right now. I think there's a couple in the Q&A, and I can go ahead and pop in the slide and adjust that for you guys.
Yeah. See if you can turn that auto advance off if you could. I tell you, one question intrigues me. It will probably be a 2-part answer. I'm sure JV will want to chime in. I saw someone asking about ransomware protection, and spot on. Well, 2 people asked about it. One said, "Hey, does it have ransomware protection? Datto EDR." And simple answer is absolutely. Datto EDR, we tested it, we saw it. It had ransomware protection. Not only Datto EDR, but the underlying Datto RMM that we use. We had that before, tested it, that it's got ransomware protection on there. So it definitely has it on there. We tested it by vector of, we have exploits, we've got malicious files that are ransomware files that we tested that those were blocked. But the behavioral aspect of the computer to detect the ransomware and stop it and let you recover, that's a good function of the EDR as well. I did not actually test that part. I test the part with the actual exploit getting onto the device to cause the ransomware to gestate through the system. JB, do you have any other comments on the ransomware? How we
work? On the ransomware, there are, what we find is that there are different ways how to do the ransomware detection. Robert, I'm going to stop this slide real quick so that it's advancing quickly. What we find is that there are different ways how the ransomware detection algorithms can be implemented. So the first thing is there are a lot of folks who use a concept called as canaries. Fundamentally, canaries is something that you can actually deploy a few devices, and if there are if the ransomware hits a certain devices, an alert will be created. But the problem is that now we are very much dependent on select the attackers to essentially attack those specific devices which are called as canary systems. So which is the problem with that case is that you may never be 100% successful in kind of stopping the ransomware attacks. Datto EDR, we take a different approach. We do look at, again, pattern and behaviors on the machines. We do look at the patterns of what happens on the machine, right? I mean, is there a ransomware note left on the machine? Is the pattern of the encryption that happens on the machine is in line with what we see with typical ransomware activity? So there are a lot of logic that goes into determining whether the activity that happens on the machine, is comparable to what happens with a typical ransomware attack. Do we have ransomware nodes? Is a specific user asking for say bitcoins to be transferred? So things like that. I mean, so there are a lot of things that happens as a result of which we make a determination as to whether this is a ransomware attack or not. So Robert, if there are other questions, maybe let's answer those. And I think we have a new slide deck without that.
Yeah, there's a second question related to that. It's like, that's all fine and good. How do I demonstrate that to a customer? I mean, am I going to go in and infect the customer's environment ransomware? Oh, look, we saved you. So that's a little bit more challenging, right? How to actually demonstrate it and prove it. So I'm going to think about that one. I think maybe a short video clip of a device being infected. We'll sandbox it off or VM it and show the ransomware progress. With and without Datto EDR would be a good way to do it. But let me take that one offline. Like, well, how would you actually demonstrate that? Because we tested it. We saw that it would stop the ransomware. How does a prospective MSSP demonstrate that to a customer? So I'm thinking maybe a short video clip or something. But let me think about that a little bit. How to demo it. Okay. Oh, I'm back. Okay. So a very simple diagram. Real internet, our malware server, we get samples from all over the world, all kinds of honeypots, all the typical threat feeds that you can subscribe to, dark web, what have you, get all kinds of malware. We actually host it for our testing and reconstitute it and sort it. So it's a job in itself, keeping the malware samples intact. We partner with VirusTotal. They've got some fabulous libraries, but there's a lot of other sources as well to get the malware from. So we test with the real stuff. That's the bottom line. The malware sample types, we have like standard, typical known malware, mobile malware, zero-day malware, and we have some that we put more as an advanced evasive, like it's malware, but we do some things on it to make it less detectable. Advanced evasive techniques could be the way the file is being applied. Sometimes the exploit is delivered in pieces where you won't detect the individual pieces, but when it arrives, it reassembles and it acts. That's the evasive threat, the AETs down there. APTs, we look at malware that, well, geez, once you got it, it doesn't want to go away. It lingers. It hangs on. It locks in. It worms. It's polymorphic. It spreads through the network, and it's very good work for MSSPs and security consultants. You want to avoid those advanced persistent threats, obviously, from your customers' networks. Modified malware, that's a good type of malware to use. As most of you know, and as JV went over, typical antivirus protection mechanisms use signature-based detection. Like we know the pattern, we found it, let's report it, let's put it in a database, let's make the hash. We know this is bad. All you have to do is slightly modify that malware, change a couple lines, put a couple comments in, boom, recompile it, boom, zip it up. Now you have a new malware as far as the hash goes, and it could slip by. So we make our own modified malware samples as well to try to fool the signature-based detection mechanisms, and then something else has to detect that malware, either a subcomponent of it or a behavioral or a heuristic approach, as JV said earlier. Polymorphic, one of the worst, in my opinion. Stuff keeps changing and mutating. That's hard. So even if you have a good signature for it and you could stop it now, it modifies itself. And that's particularly challenging malware once it gets in there. So you might have a blend of something that's persistent because it's polymorphic, because it changes and mutates itself. And zero-day malware, the talk of the latest absolute freshest exploits, whether they be brand new exploits that were made or collected from a honeypot, always a race. All the different vendors in the security market racing. Who can detect the zero-day malware first? And very challenging for signature-based AV systems. You definitely need something like an EDR solution, which will actually look at the behavior, because the 0 days, some of them will slip by. Don't care who the vendor is, some zero-day malware will slip by, signature-based detections and other mechanisms. So you need another layer. You need that EDR layer to help detect that there's something unusual. Next slide, please. So we really put Datto EDR and Datto AV through the paces. We really, basically, we tried to break it. We really tried to break the product and stress it to its limits. We found an overall exceptional number for overall malware efficacy. We'll see on the chart on the next page, 99.62 combined EDR and Datto AV working together. That's over 20 points, 25 points higher than competitors in this space. So an exceptional detection efficacy, first line of defense, that's what you want. That's what you want. So if they're using Bitdefense, if they're using Microsoft Defender, oh, it's free. You get what you pay for. Use Microsoft Defender, then don't cry. You're getting 73%. 27% of the vulnerabilities are getting through or potentially getting through to your customer. You don't want to be that guy. You want to be the 99.62 guy. Absolutely. Zero-day threat protection. Again, nobody's perfect, but very impressed with the 98% detection rate for zero-day threats. More than double the industry average for products in this class. The way that Datto did that, again, it's zero-day malware. How did it know? It got past some of the signature-based detection for the AV. Absolutely. Again, as JV said, it's the heuristic, it's the behaviors. It will detect anomalies on the computer itself. The agent is very efficient and very thorough on the endpoint, which allowed for that higher level of zero-day detection efficacy. I thought that was really, really good. Onboarding and support. This is an opportunity for MSSPs to step up. We thought the onboarding and support that we provided, we actually worked with Datto Direct on this one. But my only blemish would be, wow, I would have liked to had more personal experience. That's what the MSSPs are for, and the providers are for. So the little bit of I would have liked to have a little more. I mean, I did have a lot of assistance. It was easy. There were a lot of videos, a lot of documentation. So onboarding and support, I had a question. Definitely, they answered it. Datto was there, very happy. And I think the icing on the cake would be to have somebody in the middle there that would actually understand the customer and their needs directly, like they have a closer relation with, I understand, yeah, you use Oracle, you use this, and I see they're already knowledgeable about the customer's environment. You can provide better onboarding and support as a MSP, MSSP, knowing that customer and extending the support and the onboarding that Datto provides. So you in the middle is a fabulous place to be. If you're buying direct, then a good IT person knows their environment, go through the Datto training. It's not too bad. I survived it. Proven advanced threat detection. Yeah, again, very, very impressed with the going outside the basic types of malware, how well Datto could discern and block. We kept increasing the difficulty level. Let's throw this at it now. Okay, it blocks that. So we were able to do a full complement of different types of exploits and malware, which was quite fun and quite impressive. Let's look at the next slide. I think we have some data. So you average it all together, right? You get a 99.62. That's with Datto EDR, that behavioral, that heuristic, as well as with the Datto AV, the original signature block. Combined, fabulous, 99.62. If you look at other products on the EDR market in the same tests, the same malware strains, the same techniques, I only get about 83% detection rate. That 17%, there's the opportunity. Well, that's the opportunity for the bad guys, for the exploit, but that's the opportunity to really shine. If you can cover down on that 17% that the rest of the market doesn't cover, you will have that with Datto. One of the things very important with this, very high detection rate, very high behavioral detection rate with the EDR as well, but very low false positives. People say, wow, it blocks everything. It doesn't block everything. You don't want it to block the good stuff. So false positives were relatively low. That's a key point, because I've seen other vendors that we've tested where they really increase, they amp up their policies, their security settings. They put everything they can, they throw at it at the highest level of detection and behavioral analysis. And they also can increase. I can get it maybe up to 90% above that 83. But the false positives start to fall off all over the place. False positive, it's blocking something it shouldn't block. So you have to be very careful. This thing blocks everything. Well, so does cutting the wire, blocks everything. You can't get your work done. So false positive is a key part when you're looking at this detectability versus the industry average. Could we look at the next slide, please? So we obviously looked at malware detectability, behavioral detection, things like that. And overall, it's got 4 out of 4, nice solid green bar, 99.62 for the malware detection efficacy, the first row, excellent. Another area we looked at was alert correlation, being able to see the forest from the trees or several small things going on together that might be indicative of a bigger event, alert correlating. So that I could sort through and make a logical conclusion was very impressive. The third row, response and remediation, hey, very good. We give it a slight, could be improved, but I believe some of the things that we look for, response and remediation, could be complemented with other Datto products or other products on the market that to provide a very robust. So you could integrate Datto AV, Datto EDR with other products that provide additional things. Keeping it within the realm of AV and EDR, Datto's response and remediation was fine. You could remove malware that shouldn't be there. It had it did have some automated responses that it could do. We'd like to see some more of that in the next release, but still very good. It was still very good, and it can integrate with other products if you need more response remediation. The ATP, Advanced Threat Protection, again, phenomenal, 98%. Hats off, great job. Sorry, it wasn't 100%, JV, but next time we'll try again. Maybe, but 98% is nothing to be ashamed of. That again, that's 25 points higher than the industry average. Very good. 0-day threat protection, combining the AV and the EDR is the win there. The real-time historical analysis, very important. As some of you know, in the security industries, it's not just detecting things, it's being able to find them and sort them, put them together, see if there was a pattern forming. Sometimes hackers try to obfuscate, hide themselves, or they'll overrun the logs with too many things. You need to be able to look at those logs and make reasonable conclusions based on those log files. So having that real-time and historical analysis both Like, hey, has this been happening no, it didn't happen 6 months ago. Okay. I see it now, and I can roll it back to see what normal might have been. Performance. You're putting an agent on endpoints, guys. I mean, that's, what's the hit? What's the CPU hit? What's memory? How about battery? But the agent we found with Datto EDR NAV, it's very lightweight. It's very effective. It's very thorough, but it's also very lightweight. It didn't slow anything else down on the computer. I think the engineers did some specific measurements on par, better than other EDR solutions on the market. So no problem with the performance.
But there was a question that we got on that, which I believe you answered, but just want to call that out. This is a concern that we hear from a lot of our customers regarding performance. There is a new agent that goes on for EDR and AV, but to your point, we take great effort to make sure that it doesn't really impact the system performance. So thanks for that. Thanks for calling that out.
Yeah, that is important. I've seen, and we've tested products, really, I mean, they do a fabulous job, except, you can't use the device for other things, or while it's doing its scan, go get a coffee, go get breakfast, because you can't use the computer, and buy a more expensive computer is the answer, right? So no, it's good. It was good to see very efficient coding. Somebody else is asking about comparison to ESET and Carbon Black. I didn't do that. JV and I can look at that for a specific head-to-head. I think we wanted to keep this on with averages and how does it do overall. We weren't looking to give any vendor competitor a black eye, but hey, you still might need that information, and I really need to know, how does this compare to another specific vendor? So you'll contact Datto, contact one of the folks here, and I'm sure we can get you the specific information you need, whether it be battle card or a specific. So we do have data by each vendor. We just prefer to speak to that vendor that we're currently working with, as opposed to throwing others under the bus. The onboarding experience, I thought it was really exceptional. Online tutorials, live onboarding. We had assistance with engineers. And I think the only thing that would have made it better is if I actually had somebody that understood a little more of what I was doing. I'm a test lab. I'm not a normal enterprise customer, and I had things to do. That custom experience with someone that knew me and knew the kind of things that we did. There's just something. It's hard. There's so many customers around the world. That onboarding experience, in my opinion, could be enhanced with the right service providers, the right consultants in line. But there was nothing really wrong with the onboarding experience we had. It just, you'd get a better personal touch, I think, if we worked through another provider. Alerting and reporting, again, it was not bad at all. Datto will integrate with other systems that could provide more SIEM systems and so forth, but it was very good. The alerting and reporting, maybe a couple areas could be improved that we sent back to Datto engineering, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see it in the next release. So we'll take another look at the product in 6 months for a reevaluation. I would be very surprised if half of these didn't turn to full green. And next slide, please. Is that our last slide, JV?
So we are on the correlation slide, Robert. So
okay, my system's a little slow. There it is. I see it. This is valuable. In the alert log, right? Lots of different things pop up there. Okay, what's important? What's mundane? What's administrative? Datto EDR has the ability to parse through those, and when it sees a chain of activity that you might not have put those pieces together yourself, if it saw a certain chain of activity of suspicious behavior, sequence of things in a certain order, could indicate the early stages of a larger attack. So you could do more benign things. That was just some piece of malware. That's a dropper file. ooh, I see a privileged, some kind of privilege escalation going on. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, this looks like the makings of a data exfil. It will correlate those things together, which other EDR solutions just individually reporting on these things, you might overlook it. Yeah, there's some malware, I'll take care of it. But when it has the intelligence to look at the whole threatscape of that enterprise and all your devices and make a logical, it's like your Overwatch. It's like, no, this happened here and this happened over here and this thing. You are looking at a potentially a significant outage based on this information. So it gives you the telemetry that you need to make a more educated decision. And that's what you need. As the organizations get bigger and we get more effective at detecting anomalies and things, you're going to have alerts. You're going to have them, and you're going to be making rules and policies to which ones you want to dismiss and so forth. This was nice because it jumped out at us to say, oh, something bigger is at play with the alert correlation and advanced alerting system. So, hats off for that capability. I have not seen that really on. I haven't seen that work this well in any other product to date in the EDR space. So, hats off to Datto for that. And I guess my last slide. Again, I want to congratulate Datto engineer, product management, all the Datto team, resellers, MSSPs, everybody that's been part of the Datto Kaseya family. Very impressed with the product. You've earned this. You've earned the Miercom certified secure. This is reserved for the top 25% of the market. 75% don't get it. Top 25%. You got to be in the upper quarter, and you must pass the rigorous tests that we put it through. And that'll pass. That'll pass first time. That'll pass first time. They didn't have to come back and retest for certified secure. So we were. It was an enjoyable product to test. It was a challenging test, and but a pretty straightforward product to use. And that combination of the EDR and the recent addition to the AV work really well together. Far better than just relying on Microsoft Defender. If you got Datto EDR, Microsoft Defender, that's pretty good. But Datto EDR paired with that Datto antivirus, that's the winning ticket right there. They work very well together, and they will outperform Microsoft Defender and other, AV products that you might put on your endpoint device. Congratulations, JV, and to all your team.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. I think we have an audience poll. Devon, I think probably bring you here.
We do, yes. We have a poll up there if you guys want to take a minute and answer it. We've also dropped the link to where you guys can download this full report in the chat, so you guys can check that out. But we have so many questions, so we are definitely not going to get through all of them today. If we do not answer your question live, we will follow up with you. Give us a couple of days to get those answers for you, and we'll definitely have someone follow up directly with you. But the first question I'm going to throw out is from Torsten. Hope I'm saying that correctly. How does AV/EDR behave as an SQL or an Exchange server? And JV, I'm going to throw that one to you.
Yeah, so it can operate on the Exchange SQL servers. The only caveat I would add is regarding the capability called as ransomware rollback. It is our recommendation not to deploy the rollback on those machines which are disk IO heavy. So if there is a machine that is kind of where you are doing a lot of read writes, it can have performance impacts. If you have systems like that, Datto BCDR is probably the best solution for you to back that system up. So in case of a ransomware attack and you want to get back to a good copy, you can retrieve it from Datto BCDR solution. But if it is a normal machine, and this is the case for 90% of the machines out there, right? I mean, you are working with your Word documents, your PowerPoints, no problem, right? A ransom rollback is a perfect solution. So you want to deploy it on those machines which are not very disk IO heavy. So that's the only caveat that I would add there. But outside of that, with general AV EDR, no problem.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then Robert, this question I'm going to direct to you. How did Miercom test for malware detection within Datto EDR and AV? I know you mentioned that, but can you just retell us about that?
Yeah, I think it's all about realism, right? I mean, we had real endpoint devices. We had the dashboard up. We infected the devices. We had some machines without Datto on, some with Datto on for our test harness. But you know, obtaining real malware samples. We also did malicious URLs for downloading dropper files. So obtaining the sample set from hell, I guess, was the challenge, and then parsing it by the type. And then we would download ingress vectors on the devices, you know, multiple means. We could you know, any method to get it on the computer, Datto AV would monitor, and Datto EDR for the behavioral. So it doesn't matter if it came on email, SMS message, FTP download. Even if you went through like an encrypted app like OneDrive or Google Drive, because of the encryption, you might not detect it on the fly, but as soon as it hit that hard drive and it was sitting there, Datto AV would then pick it up when it did its scan. So we tested it like somebody that accidentally got infected with malware would have done. And we also repeated that in a 72-hour period. Missed samples, we let them remain on the device to see if the regular scan intervals would pick them up. We also mixed in, and this is very important, when you throw a plethora of malware, you have to mix in good samples, some clean samples, because how else do you know false positives? If you're just jamming it with malware, it might be, hey, you know, block everything from this endpoint or block, you know. So we intermix clean samples so that you can have an accurate measurement of false positives. Admittedly, our percentage of malware to normal traffic was, you know, off the chart from what hopefully what any of your customers experience, but you know, that's we did have to stress test it that way. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And then we have a question from Tony. What is the recommendation for frequency of quick scan or full scan?
Yeah, I can probably take that one. It's a great question. You know, one thing to realize about full scan versus quick scan is that full scan is going to have performance impacts, and not that it's going to bring the system down or anything, but you know, like full scan will essentially, as the name indicates, it's scanning through the entire you know, list of files, and it's going to take much longer than quick scans, right? So the recommended approach here is, you know, like do a quick scan on pretty much on a daily basis, you know, but a full scan maybe, you know, once a week. And do not do a full scan when, you know, people are working. You know, don't kick off their Monday morning with a quick scan, with a full scan at 8 a.m. in the morning. You know, that's kind of, people are going to be upset over it. So part of that is, it depends. It's our job as IT professionals to make sure that we don't do, you know, things like that. You know, a good tool can be used for bad stuff too. So that's my recommendation there. But certainly, you know, full scan takes more resources, can take more CPU and memory because it's covering a lot more ground, versus quick scan is looking, it's more selective in nature, but you know, it's going to look at all the files which can be potentially dangerous or malware. So
Awesome. Thank you. And then we have a question from Isaac actually about the training and everything. So is the training that Robert and team went through, is that available in Kaseya Academy, or is that something that they can reach out to their account manager and get that training easily?
yeah, so there are numerous avenues to get training. You know, like Robert and team did this testing. It's been a couple of months, right, Robert? That since you guys got their hands on this, but you know, we have a professional services team who will work with you to get you through the onboarding session. So depending upon the package that you have, either 1 or 2 sessions or 3 sessions are available for you. But on top of that, we are also doing videos, and some of this, Robert, I don't think you may not have even seen. And we made some of the changes based on your feedback. In fact, that we are creating more videos and help documents that you will be able to, grab your hands on. How to go about deployment. What are the best practices when it comes to deployment? So these videos are available. So certainly these are available today in our website, and if you are interested, we'll be happy to send the links along to you.
Awesome. And then final question. I know we have a lot that we didn't get to, but like I said, we will be following up with you guys in the next couple of days to get you answers to all of your wonderful questions today. Is this webinar being recorded? And yes, it is. You will be receiving the recording of this webinar to your emails tomorrow. But thank you all for just being such interactive attendees. It's great, seeing all these questions come in, seeing you all participate in the chat, and thank you to our amazing speakers, Robert and JV.